My mother abandoned me as a baby and had 3 more kids, but when she and her husband showed up at my wedding demanding to be family, I exposed them in front of everyone, and what happened next broke them completely. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing, and I'm engaged to the love of my life, Noah. But I need to tell this story because what happened a few weeks ago at my cousin's birthday party was basically the final point of something I'd been dragging along my entire life. And when I say my entire life, I literally mean since I was born, because my mother, Nicole, abandoned me when I was like 6 months old. It's not that she left for a while or that she had problems and needed help. No, she simply decided she didn't want to be a mother and left. My dad, Christopher, stayed with me and raised me alone. And you know, when you're a kid, you don't really understand what that means. But now that I'm an adult, I realize how incredible that man was and how much he had to sacrifice to give me a normal life. My dad worked in construction. He had those huge, rough hands of someone who breaks their back every day. And I remember he always smelled like wood and sweat when he got home, but he was never too tired to play with me or help me with homework. We lived in a small apartment, like 2 bedrooms, nothing special, but he made it into something magical, you know? On weekends, we made pancakes for breakfast and watched movies late, and he let me stay up even though I had school on Monday because he said those moments were important. He never talked bad about my mother. Never. Even when I asked him why she wasn't there, he just said that sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, and that it had nothing to do with me. The thing is that Nicole, my biological mother technically, it's not like she had completely disappeared from existence. There was a court order that said she had to visit me every 2 weeks and pay child support, but she basically ignored all of that. She came to see me maybe 3 or 4 times a year if she showed up at all, and it was always super awkward because I didn't really know her. It was like a stranger would come and pretend to be important in my life for 2 hours and then disappear for months. And the child support thing was a total joke because she ended up in jail twice for not paying. I mean, imagine preferring to go to jail rather than contribute financially to your own child. Can you believe it? When I was 6 years old, Nicole met Brad. Brad was, I don't know, a normal guy, I guess. He worked in sales or something. He had that used car salesman vibe of trying to be liked by everyone. They got married pretty quickly and started having kids, 3 in total over the next few years. And suddenly Nicole could be a mother to those kids, but I was still like an uncomfortable thought in the back of her mind that she preferred to ignore. The visits didn't increase. It was still the same old story, and my dad never pressured her or made drama about it. He just made sure I knew he was there for me, and that was enough. Brad tried. And this is something I have to acknowledge, even though it pisses me off. Brad tried at some point to be part of my life, but in the most invasive and stupid way possible. When I was like 10 years old, there was a Father's Day event at my school. You know, those horrible things where all the kids go with their dads and do activities together, and my dad always went with me, and we had a good time. But that year, Brad showed up at school unannounced, literally showed up there and told the teacher that he was my stepfather and that he came to participate in the event. My dad was already there. I mean, we were in the middle of making a stupid coaster craft with wooden sticks when Brad arrived. And I remember perfectly the confused look on my dad's face when he saw this guy approaching. Brad told me, "Hey champ, I thought I could come spend time with you today." And I was like, "Who invited you?" My dad, being the diplomatic gentleman he always was, told Brad that he appreciated the gesture, but this was his time with me, and that maybe Brad should coordinate with Nicole first before showing up at my school. Brad got all weird and defensive, saying he just wanted to be a father figure in my life, and my dad very calmly told him, "I'm his father figure. You're his mother's husband who barely sees him." The teacher had to ask Brad to leave, and it was super awkward. All the other kids staring and whispering, and after that, I didn't see Brad for a long time. Life continued being like that, my dad and me against the world, basically, and honestly, we were happy. He never remarried or had more kids. He told me I was enough for him, and that all his love and energy went to me. He took me camping in the summer, taught me to ride a bike, to skateboard, supported me when I told him I liked boys and girls, never made me feel less or different for anything. My dad's uncles, Tyler and Josh, a gay couple who lived in the neighboring city, were also an important part of my life because my dad didn't have any other close family. They came to visit us often, and were like those cool uncles who give you advice and buy you things that your dad says you don't need, but they do it anyway. Everything changed when I was 14 years old. It was a normal Tuesday. I was at school in math class, which I hated with all my soul, and they called me to the principal's office. When I got there, I saw Tyler there, and his face was all red like he had been crying, and I immediately knew something horrible had happened. He told me that my dad had suffered a heart attack at work that morning and had died before the ambulance arrived. He didn't even have a chance to say goodbye or to tell me anything. He just left, and I was completely destroyed and lost. The funeral was one of the worst experiences of my life, obviously, but what made it worse was that Nicole showed up with Brad and their 3 kids, like they were a normal grieving family. She was crying and acting like she had lost the love of her life when she literally abandoned him and ignored us for 14 years. People who didn't know the story were giving her condolences, and she accepted them as if she had a right to that pain. And I was standing there thinking, this woman has no idea who my dad really was. She wasn't there for anything. After the funeral, Brad took me aside and told me with that salesman voice he used, "Look, Cameron, I know this is a difficult time, but I want you to know you have a place in our home. You can come live with us and we can be a real family." And I just stared at him like, are you kidding? As if I was going to go live with 2 people who were never there for me, who never really wanted me, just because now it was convenient or because they felt guilty. I told him no thanks, that Tyler and Josh had already offered for me to stay with them, and that's what I was going to do, and Brad got all offended like I had insulted him. Living with Tyler and Josh was the best thing that could have happened to me in that horrible moment. They understood my pain because they had known my dad for years, and loved him too, and they gave me space to be sad but also kept me busy and made me feel that life could go on. I finished high school living with them, went to college with their support. They were at my graduation screaming louder than anyone, and they basically became my parents even though they never tried to replace my dad. During all those years, Brad tried to contact me several times. He sent me messages on social media like, "Happy birthday, champ," or "I hope you're doing well, we should catch up," and I simply ignored him. Nicole never tried anything directly. I guess she knew she had no moral standing to approach me, but Brad kept insisting with that annoying thing of wanting to be important in my life. It got to a point where I had to block him everywhere because he didn't get the hint that I didn't want anything to do with them. Fast forward to like a month and a half ago. I'm 27 years old. I live with Noah, my fiancé, in a decent apartment. I have a job I like. Basically, my life is good and stable. My cousin on my dad's side, well, technically she's the daughter of a distant cousin, but we still get along well, was celebrating her birthday and invited a bunch of family, including Nicole and Brad, because apparently they're family by association or something. I normally don't go to events where I know they'll be, but Noah convinced me, saying I couldn't let those people prevent me from seeing the rest of my family, and he was right, I guess. We arrived at the party, which was at an event hall, kind of medium, fancy. There were like 50 people there, decorations everywhere, huge dessert table, the whole thing. I was talking to some cousins I hadn't seen in years, catching up on our lives, when Brad approached with Nicole behind him. He had that huge fake smile and told me, "Cameron, so good to see you. You look great. It's been years." And I was like, "Yeah. It's been years since I stopped responding to your messages because you didn't understand. I didn't want contact. But well, I tried to be polite because we were in public at my cousin's party, so I just said hi and kept talking to my cousins, hoping he'd leave." But Brad didn't leave. He stood there waiting for some kind of deeper conversation, and finally he said, "I heard you're getting married. Congratulations. That's amazing." I thanked him curtly and introduced Noah, and I thought that would make him leave, but then Brad dropped the bomb that basically destroyed any chance of keeping the peace that day. He told me, "You know, Cameron, I've been thinking a lot about your wedding, and I'd like to talk to you about something important. I know your dad isn't here to do this, but I would be honored to walk you down the aisle on your wedding day. I know we haven't been close, but you're part of my family, and I want to be there for you in this important moment." He said it all, serious and sentimental, like he was making this big, noble gesture, and I just stood there, completely frozen, processing what I had just heard. Noah touched my arm like saying, "Calm down," but I was already beyond the point of staying calm. I told Brad, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" And he got all confused, like, "What do you mean?" And I exploded. I told him, "You're not my family, Brad. You're the guy who married the woman who abandoned me and who tried to force yourself into my life when you weren't wanted there. My dad died 13 years ago, and since then, you've tried to fill a space that was never yours to fill, and now you come offering to walk me down the aisle like you have any right to that role." People around started to stop talking and stare at us because I was speaking louder and louder. But honestly, I didn't care. All these emotions I had kept for years were coming out and I couldn't stop them. Brad tried to defend himself, saying he just wanted to have a relationship with me and that he had tried for years. And I told him, "You tried by invading my school without permission. You tried by offering a house when it was convenient for you after ignoring me my whole childhood. Your attempts were always about what you wanted, not about what I needed." Nicole finally spoke and told me, "Cameron, don't talk to Brad like that. He's been good to you." And I turned to her and literally felt like my head was going to explode. I told her, "You're going to tell me how to talk to someone? You, who abandoned me when I was a baby, who went to jail twice for not paying child support, who had 3 more kids and could be a mother to them but never to me. You're going to give me lessons about respect and family?" Her face turned white, and she looked between embarrassed and angry, and people were definitely watching all this like it was a reality show. Tyler and Josh were at the party too, and came over quickly. Tyler put his hand on my shoulder and told me, "Calm down, breathe." But Josh told Brad and Nicole, "I think you should leave." Clearly Cameron doesn't want this conversation right now. Brad was still trying to justify himself, saying he just wanted what was best for me and that he didn't understand why I was so angry. And I yelled at him, "You don't understand? My dad raised me alone, loved me alone, sacrificed everything for me alone, and died leaving me alone. You weren't there for any of that. You have no idea what it feels like to grow up knowing your mother chose not to want you and that her new husband tried to be your dad when it was convenient for him." Noah got me out of the party after that, basically dragged me to the car because I was still shaking with rage, and we drove in silence to the house. When we got there, I started crying like I hadn't cried in years. Not just because of the confrontation, but because of everything. For my dad, who I still missed every day. For the childhood I didn't have with a mother present. For all the times Brad tried to force something I didn't want. Noah hugged me and let me get it all out without saying anything. He was just there, which was exactly what I needed. I thought that after that public scene, they would finally understand the message and leave me alone. But no. 2 days later, Nicole called me. I don't even know how she got my new number because I had her blocked on my previous phone. Probably asked some family member. I answered because I was half asleep and didn't see the number. And she started yelling at me, saying that I had humiliated her and Brad in front of the whole family, that I had no right to treat them like that she was my mother and deserved respect. I told her very calmly, considering I wanted to yell back at her, "Nicole, you lost any right to call yourself my mother when you abandoned me? You lost any respect I owed you when you chose not to be part of my life? And Brad lost any chance of having a role in my life when he tried to replace my dad without earning it." And then I hung up and blocked her immediately. I thought that would be the end, that after cutting them off like that, they would finally get the hint, but Brad showed up at my apartment last week. Literally knocked on the door on a Saturday morning. Noah opened because I was in the shower, and when I came out, Brad was standing there in my living room saying we needed to talk like adults and resolve this. I told him to leave, that he wasn't welcome in my house and that if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. And he started with that whole thing about, "But we're family. You need to learn to forgive. Your dad wouldn't have wanted you to be this bitter." That was what made me completely lose my patience. I told him, "Don't use my dad to justify your need to feel important. My dad would have told me to set boundaries with toxic people, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Now get out of my house before this gets worse." Brad was still trying to talk, and I literally closed the door in his face and locked it. I heard him knock several more times, but eventually he left, and Noah hugged me, saying, "I did the right thing." Now I have both of them, Nicole and Brad, blocked on everything. I told my family not to share my information with them under any circumstances, and basically I've cut them completely out of my life. Part of me feels guilty, because society always tells you that you should forgive your family and maintain family ties. But the truth is they were never my real family. My real family was my dad, who loved me unconditionally until the day he died. Tyler and Josh, who took me in when I needed it most, Noah, who supports me in everything, and the friends I've chosen to have in my life. The wedding is in 6 months, and Tyler is going to walk me down the aisle, because he and Josh basically raised me since I was 14. And that decision feels right in a way that Brad walking me never would have felt. Sometimes I still think about everything that happened, about how it would have been different if Nicole had chosen to stay or if my dad were still alive. But I don't get stuck in those thoughts like I used to. Yesterday I was organizing old things and found a photo of my dad and me at my high school graduation. He had his arm over my shoulders and we were both smiling like idiots. I put it in a new frame and placed it in the living room where I can see it every day. And I remembered something he told me once when I was like 8 years old, and I asked him why my mom didn't want me. He told me, "Sometimes people can't give you what you need, not because you don't deserve it, but because they don't have it to give. But that doesn't mean you're alone, or that you're not loved." At that moment, I didn't fully understand what he meant, but now I understand it perfectly. Nicole couldn't give me the maternal love I needed, and Brad couldn't give me a father figure, because neither of them really understood what it meant to be present for someone beyond superficial gestures when it was convenient for them. And that's okay. I mean, it took me years to get to this point where I can say it's okay, but I'm finally there. I don't need their approval or their presence to be happy or complete. Last week, Noah and I were planning wedding details, and he asked me if I was sure I didn't want to invite Nicole and Brad, like give them one last chance or whatever, and I told him I was completely sure. That day is about celebrating love and the future, not about appeasing people who were never really there for me. He kissed me and said he loved me, and that he was proud of me for setting healthy boundaries, and that's enough, you know? That's more than enough.